saw on Monday. Michael Jackson, a few weeks ago, Sir Marsh, called upon Jamaicans to wear black on Tuesday, April 29 to register their protest to police violence. I made a call this past Monday for persons to wear blue to stand in solidarity with the police. What did Michael Jackson accuse me of doing, Sir Marsh? What did she say about my press release and my call? She said I am dividing the society. So she ain't a divide. When she called for black, me call for blue. So she called for black, ain't a divide. But when me call for blue, that a divide.
But the point about it, the police,
if she ever know how pathetic she comes across.
That's to you. But who are there to stand for the poor? Little people. Well, like a little
good question. You know who stands for the poor and the little people? We're going to break and come back. We're going to take the break and come back, Sir Marsh. Hold the line. But you know who stands for the poor and the little people? A gentleman by the name Andrew Michael Holness. We're going to take the break and come back.
That's the worst person.
Mark Golding would have been the worst person. But we're going to take the break and come back.
No.
Pause, Marsh. We're pause and come back.
Stop. Because if you say Andrew Holness stands for the poor people, me quit the call.
No, man. We have a solidarity program to come up. I will have solidarity come up. I will institute a social pension. Marsh, hold the line. Kindly hold the line. We're going to the break and coming. We're continuing the program here. You're tuned to Straight Up by Marlon Morgan. I trust we'll be able to reconnect with Mr. Marsh. The call came to an end, but I'm seeking to continue that conversation. I know that Sir Marsh doesn't necessarily take delight in my narrative, but the reason I want to respectfully afford the dialogue is to demonstrate to the listeners the very things I want to demonstrate. I'll give you an example. Michael Jackson and JFJ call for greater accountability, and they call for, due process and the police, this and whatnot. At the protest, one of the chants was, "Can't brought the law to uphold the law. Can't brought the law to uphold the law." And they were referring, of course, to the 100 and odd police killings since the start of 2025. You can't profess to be the czars of justice in this country, the czars of human rights, and then you somehow believe that the police don't have human rights and they mustn't be subject to due process too. How do you pronounce on these 100 and odd police killings in the negative when in fact no tribunal of fact has so established? There have been no conviction, my friend, so how do you do that? And we don't need to look very far. Michael Jackson took issue with my press release. She made a call for people to wear black. I made a call for people to wear blue. And she took an issue with my call. That means, Michael Jackson is telegraphing to me that she has inviolable human rights. But I, Marlon Morgan, I do not have human rights. What can go so? It can't go like that, Mama. It cannot go like that. If you, as a Jamaican, and I, as a patriotic, well-thinking and law-abiding Jamaican, see it fit to call on persons to wear blue to stand in solidarity with the police. I wasn't calling on persons, for example, to go to where you were at Half a Tree, to go and disrupt your protests. I am not. Contrary to what my colleague host here on this program, with his superficial thinking and utterances, suggests that I was pitting, his words, pitching. Yeah? I wasn't pitting one set of people against another. Anyway, we have another call. Remember the numbers, listeners. Lines are available. 212-9824, 462-0919. Repeating, 212-9824, and there's also 462-0919. Morning caller, welcome to Straight Up. Hello, good morning caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, greetings, Chief. What's on your mind this morning?
I hear you tell a man yesterday he must go back a whole report with him suggestion.
That's right.
All right, let me ask you a question. Do you have any evidence to the contrary that Mark Gold isn't born in Jamaica?
Excellent question, sir. The answer in short is no. I have neither confirmation nor evidence to the contrary. I do not have evidence that him born Yasso, nor evidence that him born elsewhere. And that is what is untenable, sir, and undesirable in my view. In my view, in a spirit of openness and transparency, everybody run up and down the place and talk about openness and transparency. Why is he hiding his assets in a trust, not being open and transparent with his holdings and ownings with the Jamaican people, going as far as to indicate to the authorities that the house where I'm living in essentially I'm picking them house. So the house where I'm living in a female house. So man holding the own house. And because also not being open and transparent in relation to where you was born. Caller, hold a moment. When I'm saying what I'm saying, I am heard, and then when you are saying what you are saying, you are heard. So let me just complete what I was saying in 8 seconds. Mark Golding, notwithstanding his assertions that he was born here in Jamaica, has not definitively provided evidence to that effect, and that should be concerning to most Jamaicans, because it's the same way he was. This is a gentleman who obfuscated, sir, as it relates to his citizenship. Prior to last year, nobody knew that Mark Golding held a British passport, and he came, yes, he came literally and flashed before us a Jamaican passport while pretending as though. And he did that. He flashed the Jamaican passport to obfuscate and give everybody the impression that he was solely a Jamaican citizen and not a dual citizen. Prior to last year, we didn't know that he was in fact a dual citizen.
You finished?
Yes, sir.
All right. Matthew Samuda is a dual citizen?
Yes, sir.
When did we know?
I don't know when you know. I know that I know last year.
All right. The president of the Senate is a British citizen?
Me no know. Me don't know, man.
You don't know?
So, me just answer you, General. That one? I just answered you, sir.
All right. You talk about Mark Golding hiding asset. Did the Prime Minister publish hiding at 28 bank accounts?
You know, no, so the Prime Minister does not have 28 bank accounts, and at no point in time did the Prime Minister hold 28 accounts at any one time.
How much account him have?
I watched a video on YouTube yesterday that provided a certain figure. I'll have to look back at it, but just to be very clear, sir.
No, Mark.
I think it was 14. No. I think it was 14 bank accounts, but just to be clear, sir.
No, sir. So are you saying that what came out in the... Are you saying that what came out in the IC report is false?
What the IC report said, sir, and so let's come back to it, yeah? Just to be clear, caller. The IC report said that Holness has been associated with 28 accounts. So, if you look at the language that was used by the Director of Investigation, Kevin Stevenson.
Did you say that any of them closed?
It didn't explicitly say that, but the appendices, the appendix that was provided.
Did he say them close any of them?
Caller, the IC man didn't say that. Yeah?
No. Did the Prime Minister say close any of the 28?
The Prime Minister did not say that. However, the exhibit provided by the IC in a sheet on a matrix which set out the respective accounts and whatnot and the money in them, that matrix would have made it clear as to accounts that were essentially closed out and money taken from it, as it were. Anyway, the substantive point is this, my brother. Julian Robinson, Matthew Samuda, who else, which other name you want to call? There's no other member of parliament, or parliamentarian rather, who have sought to obfuscate vis-a-vis their citizenship in the way this gentleman, yes, very, very slick fellow, Mark Golding, has sought to do.
You know, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
You are at university here at Belmont Road.
You tell me.
Where you broadcasting from?
I will answer that one, sir.
Why?
I find that to be not a facetious question, but, you know, a rather, you know, anyway, I reserve the adjective.
Are you broadcasting from Newstalk
I'd reserve the adjective. But let me encourage you, sir. Move on to another question so that we can advance this conversation.
No, because I get the impression that it's Belmont where you're coming from.
So the question I'll put to you, in monitoring this program, does the host broadcast from here or 89 Old Hope Road? I want you to answer that for me.
As far as I know, there's no broadcast from 89 Old Hope Road. I'm positive about that.
All right, so let me
You're positive that there's none from Belmont Road?
Hold on, sir. Let me disabuse your mind, therefore, and definitively and categorically say to you, there is no broadcast under the heading and on the sound of New Start 93 FM that emerges from 20 Belmont Road. Yes? Next question. Ask a better question, Maji.
Can I ask? No. I hear you mention about PJ. What of all the promises that your Prime Minister made 2016? How much of them in fulfill? The commitment, I should say.
So we came to the public in February 2016, sir, with a 10-point plan and delivered all in that 10-point plan. We also came to the public with some constitutional reform things, sir. You asked a question. Let me do the talking for the time being.
No. Did the Prime Minister give certain commitment,
sir,
like new power plant?
Sir, I'm here to talk. You ask a question, make me do the talking and you do the listening. I was going on, sir, to indicate to you that the Prime Minister and the party he led gave some undertakings as it relates to constitutional reform, not least fixed election date and term limits. Those matters are being dealt with and are to be dealt with within the context of constitutional reform. And you will appreciate, sir, that constitutional reform is going on as we speak. No, sir? All right.
When you speak about in the first 100 days, he miscount?
No, he never miscount. We have found a much broader, so just to be clear, caller, we have devised a much broader framework rather than dealing with these weighty and long-standing constitutional questions and issues. We have found a framework to solicit the views of the people of Jamaica in making those determinations, and that is the constitutional reform efforts and the Constitutional Reform Committee. What about him?
He promised job description. What about it?
And what was delivered some months ago?
That was delivered. What about new power plant?
We are building capacity as it relates to power plants.
No, he's saying I'm bringing people to put up a new power plant.
And I remember Portmore being Little Miami. Portmore, the developments going on in Portmore, particularly Nagahead.
No.
Sir.
I answer my.
You're going to have to make up your mind, you know.
No.
I don't want us to talk at the same time, though, Maji.
No.
You go and talk for the time being.
Question.
You talk for the time being. Go ahead.
What about bringing in people to set up new power plant that you can get cheaper energy?
Well, let me tell you what has been brought in. 8 consecutive years of no new taxes. 10 consecutive years of no net new taxes.
He did not promise that.
Which goes to show, caller, that the Prime Minister has not only. Sir, can you just bear with me? Sir, I don't want us to speak at the same time. You understand that very basic point?
No, but answer my question. He gave a commitment that I'm going to bring in people to set up new power plants that we can get cheaper energy. Am I correct?
Sir, considerable work is going on in relation to energy. You saw it with New Energy Fortress. Yes? And a host of other mechanisms. And of course, renewable energy sources rather, are being harnessed right across the country. And the supporting legislation to facilitate
renewable energy you are bringing
solar, sir. So for example, sir, you see through the NHT, there's a facility that enables...
Marlon,
don't do that, sir. Don't ask me something and then when I'm speaking, you start to speak. The next time you do it, that's the end of the phone call. The next time you do it, that's the end of the phone call, sir.
But
You asked me a question a while ago. I was asked a question a while ago about renewable energies. But you don't want information to reach the listeners. You don't want information to come out. So just to be very clear, the National Housing Trust has had a facility available to our nation's seniors, many of whom, as you know, subsist on fixed income because they're pensioners. They grapple with high light bills in many instances, and Jamaica is well placed to harness solar power. And so the NHD has had a facility for which seniors can apply and get the build out in terms of solar panels so as to harness solar powered energy and of course ease their burden in relation to the JPSCO. But of course, there are some persons who would not want to hear of those things. The fundamental question put to me just now, I would respond to it by saying, not only have the election promises been delivered in the main, yes, there are a couple of matters that have not yet been delivered on. But when we talk about Portmore, for example, I heard Dayton Campbell talking about Portmore becoming Little Miami. Of course, Portmore is well on its way. Bernard Lodge, the development to build out Bernard Lodge is ensuing. Portmore is being made Jamaica's 15th parish. Opportunities for considerable investments and further expansion in Portmore are well underway. Look at the housing stock in Portmore, and importantly as well, look at commerce in Portmore. Look at the Nagohead Tech Park and what is happening in that area there as it relates to the global process outsourcing or the knowledge process outsourcing industry. Sir, we are entitled to our own opinions, not to our own facts. Because you asked me about a number of manifesto promises or commitments, I readily accept that there are some that have not yet been delivered on. But the Jamaican people are not stupid. You can't try to pick off one thing or two things. This government stands on a platform of its comprehensive achievements as an administration. I beg your pardon. And those achievements touch and concern every aspect of Jamaican life, to include, as you are now seeing, the build-out of a rural school bus system across Jamaica. Many governments prior have come and have spoken about it, but not many governments have actually delivered on it. None prior to now have actually delivered on it. Yeah? So just to be clear, the administration has delivered on things that it promised, in addition to a host of other things that it did not promise. The administration is also very, very intent and committed to continuing to deliver on the whole business of crime management, much to some people's dismay. So much so that they would go to Offertree and collect them $1,500 or them $1,000 as the case may be. 36% reduction in murders. So don't come tell us about power plant. Go and talk about the 36% reduction in murders. And in terms of energy, I just gave you but one example. The solar power panels through the National Housing Trust. At the back end of the conversation with Marsh, I made a certain assertion, and Marsh would take exception to it, such that he would have, elected to discontinue the conversation. And that's fine. Because what that says to me is that the brief, the government's platform and record of achievement is very demoralizing for some. The 36% reduction in murders is demoralizing. I spoke about Holness and the poor. Sir Marsh took exception to it, but even in his absence from the phone lines, I will say this and trust that he's hearing. It is the Prime Minister and the administration he leads that have done the following things in relation to the poor. Increased path payments, abolished the guarantor requirement at the Student Loan Bureau, instituted, yes, a social pension, slashed JUTC fares, yeah, increased the pension for the elderly, NIS pension, and the old age pension, reduced GCT. All these things benefit and impact the poor, Mr. Marsh. It may not be comforting for you and the narrative that you would want to hear, but that's the reality. If you sit in a Catholic church, you'll be hearing a Catholic sermon. When you go to Andre Stevens, you'll be hearing some other sermon, like a Jehovah's Witness sermon or a Methodist sermon. But if you come to an Adventist church or a Presbyterian church, you'll be hearing the service that and the sermon that is preached at those churches. Simple. But the truth is that the sermons preached by me are undergirded by the facts and are supported by the evidence at all times. The lady say I'm dividing the people in my call for blue, and I would simply put it to her, are you or were you dividing the people with respect to your call for black? If I were to apply your logic, it don't compute. Those facts are there. She called for black, me called for blue. Coming back to Androlis and the poor. As I said, there have been 8 consecutive years of no new taxes. We have had a reverse income tax credit. And some people who are poor never get none of that because them no have no income. No formal income, or them never pay file any income tax at the tax office. So something has been devised for them. Let us look at the poor again. The minimum wage. The levels of increases in the minimum wage, Mr. Marsh. No other government has been as attentive to the poorest among us than this one. When the man came to office, the minimum wage stood at $6,200. At present, the minimum wage is $16,000 per 40-hour work week. Those are facts. When I preach the sermon, although you're not comfortable with it, and although you don't want to hear it, the sermon is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Then there is a solidarity program that is to come. And of course, the solidarity program, the solidarity initiative, will see some 50,000 Jamaican men and women receiving $20,000 each because they are so deserving. In other words, these are poor for the most part and vulnerable Jamaicans who are not captured anywhere. Then they get no social pension. They are not 75 and over, so they're not captured there. So they're not the part, they're not captured there. So yes? They're not NIS pensioners, they're not captured there. So no other window and provision in government has provided for them. And the Prime Minister has devised this initiative, again, much to the chagrin of some, from whence deserving Jamaicans will be benefiting. During COVID, Mr. Marsh and listeners, many persons were out of work. the government devised a care program. Many other governments around the world buckled under the pressure, but this government exhibited care and catered to employers and employees alike because it recognized that the COVID-19 pandemic caused considerable dislocation. So, though you would elect to get off the phone and not want to hear about Holness in relation to provisions for the poor, the facts underscore and substantiate what I am saying, sir. The records are there to show the said cash, the care program under COVID, you name it. Things pan top of things, pan top of things. In other words, a crocus bag of things. Anyway, I'm Marlon Morgan. Morning. Welcome to the program, caller.
Hello. Yes, morning, Senator.
Yeah, morning, Fox. How you doing?
Yeah, everything good, my virgin.
There, my fist them a hurt me.
Just take it easy.
I feel punch too much. Marsh and all kind of unidentified.
Yeah, whenever I pick up the radio station this morning, it's so clear,
Oh.
But me I watch the YouTube when you post up with the YouTube thing.
That's not me though. I don't even know who that is, quite frankly. I think someone on JLP Politics in Jamaica, something like that.
Right. Yeah, man. Big them up, man. Then do a good job, Brother Marlon. Listen to me now. You see me I tell you yesterday, so every time the PNP start, then come here and catch hand foot and mouth disease in my virgin.
We don't know. What make you say that now?
Now, come with me, make me a reason now. Last week in the Senate, I was watching the Senate debate where the Jamaica Speaker calls in bill.
Yeah.
Right? I was watching it live. And among other things, Damian Crawford stood up at the end of the debate and said, we have, in other words, you were there, so you can correct
He congratulated the minister and noted the advances that she has made and the updates she provided. Coming. Yep.
To the point where the president of the Senate, Honorable Simpson Tobari, he was smiling, laughing because he know that it's not a regular thing for the opposition to, congratulate the government. No, Marlon. From 2012, 13, 14, 15, the Jamaica Council teaching bill, this bill was debating about. To the point, in 2015, you can check it, November, Ronnie Tweet was telling the teachers that they have nothing to fear and there are always room for debate where this is concerned. So when Damian Crawford go down a whole 89 whole up road, go to a press conference, him and those relics, you know to say them done and everything.
And being opportunistic.
And it's very opportunistic. It's trying to confuse the Jamaican people out here like that. Ronnie Tweet was Minister of Education. And he was telling the teachers that they have nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. The JTA and the Ministry of Education come to an agreement in going forward with this bill. So where the PNP argument, Brother Marlon, you see the Damian Crawford by that politics. And it's sorry for them people out of St. Catherine Northwest, if them put Damian Crawford out there and I see him representation, he's going to get like when we get up a issue at St. Andrew.
He's a gentleman, Fox, who listens to his voice only.
Yes.
Dean Jackson Miller is not known to be sympathetic to the government. Yeah? And when you see Dean Jackson Miller, who many consider as having her political sympathies lying elsewhere, taking him to task.
Yes.
Taking him to task as she had to do on All Angles last evening, it is very, very instructive. It says a lot.
That is to show you that they have no basis. I remember me telling Damian Crawford is a non-performer. He run in my constituency in Israel. He's a non-performer. I'm sorry for those people out there if they elect him. And I want to say Amos, who I know very well.
I can share something with you, Fox.
Yes.
That's before you come back to Amos, right? This morning I was driving in and reflecting on it because, as you know, I had the JTC as my opening commentary this morning, and I thought to myself about, certain things. And I said to myself, there are some people who are interested in the job, but they are not interested in the work.
Me like you put it.
That best describes Damian Crawford.
True, yeah,
He wants to be all of the things.
But you know what the problem is, brother Marlon?
Not interested in the work.
You know what the problem? Maybe you're not afraid to say it, to see it as it is, But many people, them don't want to say it. But Damian Crawford is not likable in Mark Goal in PNP. Me I tell you that. So they have him push him around because he was a supporter of Peter David Filipino.
Yeah, that is well documented. And him say Mark is a 400-meter runner, and what is required is a 800-meter runner, him say.
Yes, man. So listen to me now. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, there's a clip going around where she said, when the criminal and the rapist come in your home,
load up the gun and
load up the clip. You understand? Brother Marlon, and the same thing my Prime Minister is saying, prepare to meet a judge or your maker.
Well, a citizen's right, Fox to self-defense is not in question. It's only if a criminal a retreat, then you stand down. But if a criminal a advance, you take it to guy.
Yes.
Unapologetically.
Right. And some people want to bash the Prime Minister for saying that. But the Prime Minister was right. We want a Prime Minister a long time man who can clean up Jamaica. And
the point is simple, Fox. If you're not ready to meet your maker, humble yourself and go sit down in front of the judge. Simple.
Simple. Right? A long time want a Prime Minister.
I gave Marsha ARB this morning, you heard the ARB?
As I said, we couldn't keep the program so much. We hardly could hear you.
And it's the same thing the Prime Minister is giving the criminals at ARB. Meet the judge or meet the maker. Now, some of them are elect to go meet the maker.
Alright, continue to burn the fire, my brethren. You hear me tell you? And the business leaders them up there, I hope they're looking what is happening in the country. Because putting the PNP back in power now, backward we are going, my brethren.
All right.
Are we not ready for that?
Word to the wise is sufficient. Hear you loud and clear, Sir Fox. All the best. Good. All right. So, listeners, at this juncture, we segue to a conversation where we dive into the stories shaping business, innovation, and opportunity, both here in Jamaica and beyond Jamaica's shores. Now, today, we're exploring what it really takes for local businesses to make their mark on the global stage. And trust me, it's more than just having a great product. Joining us this morning is Shanoy Harris-Coombs. She is the CEO of Infinity Integrated Marketing Communications and Events Limited. She's a communications strategist with extensive experience in intercultural communication and international development. Now, Shanoy recently addressed exporters at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries' Export Expansion Clinic, where she emphasized a game-changing truth. Cultural awareness isn't just nice to have, it's key to international market success. She's here to share her insights on breaking into the US and European markets, building culturally resonant brands, and why digital marketing must be rooted and undergirded by strategy. Welcome to the program, Shanoy.
Hi, good morning, Marlon. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you're hearing me clearly.
Yeah, man, we're hearing you well. You're coming across well. Share with our listeners about your own, in a capsule, your experiences as an experienced, an entrepreneur and an experienced player in the business sector.
All right, great. So thank you. So I have been an entrepreneur for probably longer than I thought. So, I've always been someone who has been looking for different opportunities. But formally, I studied media and communications at the University of the West Indies here in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And then later on went on to the UK to study intercultural communications and international development as a Shevening Scholar. Essentially, that focuses on everything related to culture and how it affects just about everything we do in life. Now, incidentally, I worked within the United Nations system for years prior to going back to school to do my master's. It was a very interesting sort of matchup when a lot of what I was now seeing from a theoretical perspective were things that I would have already been implementing from a practical perspective through the work that I was doing within the UN. So fast forward a bit with the masters, we focus a lot on culture and business, how it affects just about everything that we do, why some businesses prosper, why some fail, and, you know, especially with the thrust in Jamaica for us to be exporting, I have been finding more and more that this is a message that needs to be reiterated widely. So my company Infinity as well, we work with clients who are based both locally, regionally, and internationally. And so every day, even if we're not directly saying we're utilizing the cultural skills, we have to be utilizing them in the background. We're understanding the markets we're working with, not just from the perspective of persons who are selling the product, but the persons who are purchasing the product and the markets that they're sending them into. So that's just a little bit of a summary in terms of my background and the work that my team also does at Infinity.
Indeed. Now, can you give us an example, Shanoy, as to how a lack of appreciation or cultural understanding would have caused a business, some enterprise or another, to miss the mark in terms of an international opportunity?
So there are several on record. I would always say to people, look to the larger companies because, you know, they have a lot of research capital. They have big departments with big money that can really be
and data analytics
and
support.
Yet they fail because for years, Walmart, for example, the mega commerce giant in the United States, they failed to successfully integrate into several European markets. At first, the assumption was made that based on proximity, we're speaking probably the same language in most instances, they would be able to have that crossover.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them, though, is that when they moved over into the German marketing, they found that the U.S. standards in terms of everything, it was everything from how they did the stores.
The design of the store, design and layout.
The US is known for trying to give convenience, going grand and large and upsizing and all of that stuff. And it was not translating in the German market. So even things like refurbishing the stores, it was not welcomed. And then also in terms of the products, there were people that they were marketing products to who preferred a more friendly, interactive, face-to-face sort of dynamics. People who love to walk to the market and talk to the person who they're buying milk from, who they're buying bread from, etc. Walmart, when it did its initial transition into the German market, was not offering people that, so they couldn't understand. But that, a huge part of it, was the cultural differences. Same thing, I think, with Walmart again. They eventually wanted to move into the UK, and they thought from proximity perspective, it was the same thing. We're speaking the same language, we may have the same tastes and preferences, but they really did not have a lot of successes outside of the European market. Outside of the US market, rather. I could mention as well, I think Dunkin' Donut was another one who had that situation because they expanded beyond their shores. They were going into other places like Indonesia, Russia, etc. And a very funny thing I will tell you, Marlon, is that in Indonesia, for example, there's this people like the sweet and savory mix. So, you know, Dunkin' Donuts tend to be sweet.
That's on the sweet
and in
side,
one of the Indonesian markets, they were sprinkling this white cheese on top of the donuts. And at first, they were Dunkin' Donuts was saying, no, this is unacceptable. It is not in line with our brand ethos and all of that stuff. Essentially, they were losing customers. Eventually, they had to adapt to the cultural nuances and more or less say, okay, we now have to understand we're marketing to a different set of people with different tastes of preferences.
Flexibility.
And they had to localize their product offerings for these people to be able to connect with them.
And we've been citing some of these examples, Shanoy, and I don't know the degree to which you would concur, but for us here in Jamaica, we may cite, or some of us anecdotally, often make reference to McDonald's and its experience here in Jamaica, where many of us lament the sheer size or the lack thereof of the McDonald's burger buns and, quite frankly, the burger patties as well, which would have seen McDonald's being, shall we say, a failed venture or experiment here in Jamaica, so much so that they had to lock up shop and leave.
Yes. That's correct. And that's an interesting thing because sometimes it's about timing as well. the time when McDonald's entered the market, you will recall, Marlon, that Jamaicans, by and large, we were starting to embrace fast food, but we were very specific in our tastes and preferences. We still had a culture of eating at home a lot. It would be very interesting, I dare say, if McDonald's were to enter the market, what the response would have been like. But again, you are correct that at the time they entered and also the audience they were marketing to, we were not taking it on.
Yeah. Indeed. You spoke at this event recently. You want to share with us the exporters
so for this
event?
as well, it is super important for a company like Jamaica. In diversifying our income sources and stuff, I know there have been significant efforts trying to encourage more exports. We import here, but we're trying to balance the scales by exporting as well. So this event was being organized as a export expansion clinic, and it was done by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. So when I worked within the UN system, I worked with the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. So again, had some direct inroads in terms of what happens from both sides of the divide, from the Caribbean going out into international markets and also from international markets coming into the Jamaican market space. So at that event, I was speaking to exporters. And the message to exporters was, of course, some of us were selling directly to diaspora people. You don't really need to market as much to them.
Yeah.
A Jamaican overseas will buy banana chips. Once they see the Jamaican banana chips, they will buy certain canned products.
True.
But based on this market expansion clinic, there are several other niche markets that are opening up internationally for exporters in the food space, and I'm sure in several other sectors. However, to cross over, we have to understand the language these people are speaking. And I don't mean language like Spanish versus English. We can all be speaking the same language like English, but it's resonating in different ways. And so I say to people all the time, we have something we call in the cultural domain as high context culture and low context culture. And high context culture people, they tend to be more implicit. So, they take context cues, you don't have to spell it out to them. Whereas in low context cultures, you have to spell it out. You have to be very explicit. And I know you probably have watched like the Super Bowl ads in the US and stuff, and you probably would have also seen comparatively the ads in Jamaica. And I always say to people, if you've noticed in Jamaica, our ads tend to spell out literally. If it is corned beef you're buying, it's going to tell you that it is corned beef. If it is drinks you're buying, it's going to tell you.
We see some more abstraction in some of those Super Bowl ads, so true.
Exactly. So we are a very low context culture in terms of we need explicit language, we need direct communication, right? But in some cultures, it's the opposite. They are more implicit, right? Sorry, I'm not sure if you're hearing me. They're more implicit.
I'm here. We're hearing you quite
more
fine.
Take on indirect communication and stuff. So I don't want to go into too much of the theoretical side, but essentially, there are key things in different markets that need to be considered. Something as important as colors. We may take it for granted. In terms of colors. And red may mean nothing to us, right? And with that, we may say, all right, our packaging for something we're exporting may be red, but in some markets, it's an offensive color.
True.
Things like that we have to take into consideration. We have to take into consideration different things like what people value. If people are valuing family, and how can we incorporate our product in that. So part of my presentation at that export clinic spoke a lot about how understanding cultural differences can help you to brand in different markets and how to effectively market to persons in these spaces. And it's never one size fits all. So as I said to persons at the presentation, don't think that because you have maybe a logo and a brand visual that works one way in Jamaica that you're going to just take it up and export it as is. You need to have the flexibility that you can tweak things.
That's
and
right.
I would have said the same thing in the reverse, because when I worked in the UN, we had projects that were successful in other markets. When we tried to import those projects wholesale in Jamaica, we found it was not going to cut it. The Jamaican market was a very different ball game. And, our tastes, our preferences, how we communicate, what we like, what we dislike were different. So I said the same way we think of how we market to ourselves, we have to think of how do we market to people who are different from us.
And in the 40
So-
seconds we have remaining, Shania, because one of the things jumping out at me right here now as well is timing as well, in that a project or an experience that may have failed in a previous dispensation or at a particular point in time, having regard to certain dynamics within the local space, certain changes and evolution, you may have, success in
Yes.
another dispensation.
Yes, and so I
As
think I
attitudes
hinted at
change.
that earlier to
Yeah.
say with timing,
Mhm.
there may have been ideas even among Jamaicans who are thinking to export that may have failed, and I know we didn't get to touch on it in terms of the internet and branding and how social and digital media is really helping us to expand beyond our shores. But there are some things that probably would not have worked for some segments of people who are seeking to export, that the timing is now, the opportunities are there, the platforms are ones that they can capitalize on and get direct hands and eyes into markets sometimes before you might have had to go to certain trade shows and expos. Still a very good strategy, but now your social media pages, your digital platforms, your website can operate, I like to say, as your sales rep who's working for you even while you sleep. Because my company has had business by people just looking at our website, and they're calling us from places in Spain. We're getting calls from people in Norway, etc. And these are people who we would have literally just been using our social and digital platforms to market to. So that, I would say, is very important to note from a timeliness perspective and a resource that can be maximized on for culturally relevant exports.
All right. Well, have to leave it there this morning, but really thank you for stopping by, Shania.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Marlon.
All the best. Good. So that
Okay,
was, listeners, Shania Harris Coombs. She is the CEO, of Infinity Integrated Marketing Communications and Events Limited. So she was sharing with us there about the importance of some of the intercultural nuances underpinning business strategy and communications. Now we're gonna go to the break and come back with more of your calls here on Straight Up. The numbers are 212-9824 and there is also 462-0919. Do stay with us. Back to the phone lines as we close out our broadcast for this morning. Just a reminder of the list of the numbers: 212-9824 or 462-0919. Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up.
Morning, Senator Morgan.
Morning, sir.
Friday gone, you was inside the Senate?
Yes, I absolutely was. Giving them a
All
warm
right,
time as usual.
When that bill came for the teachers, was you inside the Senate?
That is correct, sir. I was.
All right, I want to ask you a question, Senator. When the bill come to the Senate to debate, the Minister of Education say the opposition asked for 2 months before and then gave them, then they asked for 2 weeks after again and they still got it. And when the bill came to the Parliament, what Mr. Bunting before said he have no problem with the bill. Only the problem we have with the bill is that the bill was out for 20 years and he don't know what was some argument he said, but
he had sought, so Bunting had made a couple points to seek clarity on a couple matters. I think
Right.
even in relation to homeschooling or something like that.
Right.
So I wouldn't say he had no, but what we know is that in principle, there was no fundamental divergence in principle with the bill and, the objects and reasons for the bill. So just to be clear.
All right. The question that I want to ask you, Senator. Up to Friday, before the bill passed, if Damian Crawford look inside the bill and see things that he's not satisfied with, he could have asked for more time, no, sir? So, agree with the bill for the bill to pass Tuesday, Friday, and having a press conference Tuesday to object it to the bill that you give your commitment to Friday is like a trickster.
So now, you will appreciate that there's a difference. There was a passage of time from Friday to Tuesday. So there's a certain wind that certain people would have picked up between Friday and Tuesday, and therefore being politically opportunistic, and as you say, in the fine traditions of a trickster, certain people do what they do.
Thank you very much, sir. And the next question I would like to ask you, Senator. How could you put trust into people's hand like a doors to operate a government?
Yeah, there you go.
Do you remember when time the Mr. Clark before him left here, and that Reyes and Julian Robinson jump up inside the parliament and said this is the best thing happened to ministers since sliced bread, and by the next morning he must recheck it. Do you remember what happened to the legal constitution to move from England, that's Mr. Golding's country, to go republic? And Mr. Golding even get up and said, yes, we must do that. And then after that, as soon as it do that sit on that council, as soon as it doesn't suit Mr. Golding, everybody have to back off.
Are you referring to constitutional reform, sir?
The constitutional reform.
I'm going to ask you to, well, when you hang up, I'm going to play for you an aspect of a call made by the opposition leader. I think he was contributing to the budget debate in 2022 at the time.
Okay, thank you. Can play it after me hang up.
Yeah, man, complete the point.
There is some dictatorship is coming into the opposition, where it seems like if they go and say anything, and as soon as the opposition leader look through it for himself, him say no, and them all have to back off. No country can't govern like that. Country cannot govern like that. But you're going to the Senate tomorrow. I hope
I don't
I'm
think
going
there's
to
a
listen.
meeting. There's no scheduled meeting of the Senate tomorrow.
Tomorrow, well, okay. As soon as I get back to the Senate, I would like to hear, ask Damien Crawford some question. And the question that I like you to ask him, if he did not read the bill.
It doesn't appear so, sir, because
It doesn't.
the good
Thank you very much, Senator.
gentleman made mention of UE only, when in fact both UE and UTEC are accommodated. Anyway, let me just go to the playing of this clip.
Yes, play that clip. Have a nice day, sir. Something is wrong with this. The dictatorship is coming into the opposition. A dictator opposition.
All right, thank you. Good. Going to, another call? Good morning, caller. Welcome to Straight Up. Hello, good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Morning, sir. Morning.
Morning, caller.
All right. First, I want to talk about greed. Yeah. You know the story about this dog that was walking on the bridge and look, he had a bone in his mouth.
Yeah, man, I know that
and
story very well.
And he saw his shadow.
Yep, I know it very well.
And he woke him out. And the bone fell out.
Relinquish the bone that he had in pursuit of the bone that appeared bigger and better to him.
You're telling the story even clearer for me. Okay?
Yes, sir.
In this world, that's what matching up the world overall. When you look at the superpower then, like the France, the United States, if your country is progressing, they will come in, make we use the word allegedly, and take you down. Because their aim is always to keep you as servants, subordinates, that they can exploit you left, right, and center. And I think there's no organization in the world to protect poor countries. So a lot of things where politicians get blamed for is because of these superpower that are dictating how you run your country.
Indeed.
And until we can stand up and you're gonna be in great danger, like what's happening now in Burkina Faso. You know, your life will be in danger. They'll be coming after you, setting up coup, whatever, to destroy your country. And I think it's sad. It's sad. But right now, Africa is standing up, and I'm with the captain, Travel. How his name is properly pronounced.
He is one of my. He is one of my heroes, sir. Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso.
And
following, just hold a moment, Louis, man. Following in the fine traditions of his predecessor, Thomas Sankara, another gentleman who I admire greatly, and that is why I wear a green beret.
Gaddafi. I'm saying this.
Yes, Chief.
If they believe they can kill him, what's going to happen? We're going to end up with a world war. That's where the world is heading. No. Because the black people worldwide, they are saying no more of this.
Yeah.
And if Africa pull themselves like what this guy is really doing, those great European country and North America, all of them, they're going to fall like, I told Raymond this, like when breadfruit drop off a tree. You know, when they ripen and drop off, what happened to it?
The butter.
The whole monetary system going to crash.
The butter.
Because it's artificial demand for the American dollar, pushing up the value of the dollar, all of that will disappear. And that they are afraid of, they don't want that to happen. Because they know that if that happens, a country will over $30 trillion, China and Japan control most of the bonds. And if they sell out and they're doing that now, what's going to happen to their dollar?
That's right.
The trade, who's going to buy the soya bean? Who's going to buy this, whatever from them? What they do is fight war, take the money and fight war, set up camps all over the world to overthrow people. When China was busy investing their money in technology. Now China can produce things so cheap, a phone, they can produce it for little or nothing. America cannot do that. And now a lot of the big scientists, those with the PhDs, a lot of them now packing up and going to countries like China and Japan, taking them in. So they are running out of brains because most of the Americans, they're not doing so well when it comes to science and so on.
That's true.
And third world countries and so on, helping them. So, I don't know, but the world is in a crisis.
All right. Well, we'll keep, our eyes open and we keep focused. Thanks for your intervention.
One more point.
Go ahead.
One more point I want to make. I want people to do their own research. Type in the word Patricia Levy, Savlamar, Westmoreland, and everything will come up. Patricia Levy, Savlamar, Westmoreland. Dr. Levy's daughter. Have a good day, sir.
All right. All the best, my brother. So we're going to play a little clip to... There's a caller we had earlier who asked me about some manifesto promises or promises. So on the question of commitments given, listen to this clip.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order because the minister is misleading the House. We did not present an implied budget for the coming fiscal year. We presented our proposals, our policy commitments for the next PNP government, and we have never said that they will be implemented in the current fiscal year. They are...
And there's another clip I really wanted, a clip having to do with, but I'll bring it up in a while. It's a clip having to do with the much talked about constitutional reform, because as you know, a couple budgets ago, the opposition leader had made the call, had urged the government to proceed with constitutional reform. Yes.
The important process of repatriating our sovereignty, which began in 1962, has stalled, and there is important unfinished business. The time has come for Jamaica to become a republic within the Commonwealth, with a Jamaican head of state, and for us to swear allegiance to the Constitution and people of Jamaica. Let us proceed with the legal steps required to achieve this, since there is consensus that this is where we need to go. Madam Speaker, we also believe strongly in the importance of providing greater access to the highest level of justice for the Jamaican people by moving from Her Majesty's Privy Council to the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final court of appeal. However, the consciousness of the other side is not there yet. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. When Jamaica is moving out of the King's Yard, we cannot have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the yard. That would leave us neither fish nor fowl in another man's yard. That can't work. We will not support a phased approach to dealing with the matter of full decolonization. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. We will not support a phased approach to dealing with the matter of full decolonization.
So you heard earlier this morning Peter Bunting supporting the Jamaica Teaching Council bill. You would have seen Damian Crawford in thespian-like fashion convening a press conference on Tuesday, doing the opposite of what was essentially done in the Senate this past Friday. So they make it up as they go along. A few budget cycles ago, Mark Golding, I think he was speaking in March of 2022, made mention of the critical importance of Jamaica establishing the Jamaican Republic. It was Mark Jefferson Golding, Conrad O'Brien refers to him as Marky G. So Marky G made an impassioned and what we considered a sincere appeal, a call for Jamaica to be established as a republic. He made the point that, listen, we know that there are a number of issues to be worked out and things, but let us begin this process by forging ahead with the things that we are at least agreed on. That's the very approach the government has taken, listeners. And it is the same Mark Golding now who came subsequent to that and said, listen, we have to do the final court at the same time that we're doing the doing away of the king. So at the same time we're establishing the republic, we need to treat with the issue of the final court. I'm going to play that clip again so that you can just carefully listen. Can I have as best an audio on that as possible so that we can clearly hear the goodly opposition leader in his own voice, making it up as he goes along, saying one thing in one instance, but because it is convenient,
which began in 1962.
But because it is convenient, we're going to go back to the very start of it. So because it is convenient in a subsequent dispensation and for perhaps political considerations and purposes, he conflicts with the very position he had previously. Listen carefully to what the opposition leader is saying in this clip.
The important process of repatriating our sovereignty, which began in 1962, has stalled, and there is important unfinished business. The time has come for Jamaica to become a republic within the Commonwealth, with a Jamaican head of state, and for us to swear allegiance to the Constitution and people of Jamaica. Let us proceed with the legal steps required to achieve this, since there is consensus that this is where we need to go. Madam Speaker, we also believe strongly in the importance of providing greater access to the highest level of justice for the Jamaican people by moving from Her Majesty's Privy Council to the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final court of appeal. However, the consciousness of the other side is not there yet. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. When Jamaica is moving out of the King's Yard, we cannot have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the yard. That would leave us neither fish nor fowl in another man's yard. That can't work. We will not support a phased approach to dealing with the matter of full decolonization. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. We will not support a phased approach to dealing with the matter of full decolonization.
Speaking there out of both sides of his mouth. Not surprising, because this is the same man who said we can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the King's Yard. While at the same time, the very moment in which he was making that statement, he had proverbially, or should I say metaphorically, a Jamaican passport in one pocket and his British passport in the other pocket. And he was saying to Jamaica, you can't have 1 foot in the King's Yard and 1 foot out. While he, Mark Jefferson Golding, Marky G, had 1 foot in the King's Yard and 1 foot in Jamaica. Also, he is the same gentleman who made a call for the government to advance with the process of constitutional reform by establishing Jamaica as a republic. His words were, however, let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. He indicated that he's mindful that there is a divide on the question of Jamaica's final court. And in making that point, he said, however, let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. That Al, that Marsh, that Milton, or should I say those, were the words of Marky G. Let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. The very thing, the very phase-based approach that the government elected to go with because it made eminent sense. If we have a divergence of views, if we have strong views and contention in relation to some aspects of constitutional reform, a good starting point, yeah? The low-hanging fruits and a good starting point. There must be those things around which there, is generally consensus. The low-hanging fruits, we could move with them there, and then we can flesh out and over time work collaboratively on the other things. Flip-flopper in chief. Lines are available, callers. 212-9824 as we race up to midday. I'm seeing 5 minutes on the clock here. 462-0919. Well, in the absence of the calls, can you kindly, Madam Producer, play that very profound clip with the opposition leader? Well, let me start with the clip, Peter Bunting on JTC, and close out with the clip, Mark Golding on constitutional reform.
Certainly in support of the bill, and we are glad that the elephantine gestation that it has taken to get to this point is almost at an end, and we support you in that regard. Thank you.
The important process of repatriating our sovereignty, which began in 1962, has stalled, and there is important unfinished business. The time has come for Jamaica to become a republic within the Commonwealth, with a Jamaican head of state, and for us to swear allegiance to the Constitution and people of Jamaica. Let us proceed with the legal steps required to achieve this. since there is consensus that this is where we need to go. Madam Speaker, we also believe strongly in the importance of providing greater access to the highest level of justice for the Jamaican people by moving from Her Majesty's Privy Council to the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final court of appeal. However, the consciousness of the other side is not there yet. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. When Jamaica is moving out of the King's Yard, we cannot have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the yard. That would leave us neither fish nor fowl in another man's yard. That can't work. We will not support a phased approach to dealing with the matter of full decolonization. So let us begin with the things that we can agree on and move forward. We will not support a phased approach to dealing with the matter of full decolonization.
Well, you heard the gentleman in his own words. And a good gentleman takes us to the end of the broadcast this morning. I really must thank our broadcast technician and producer, Ms. Tanya Richards.